You do it
I smack too hard, dude.
crazy every time. Hi, everybody.
What is in my eyeball?
Welcome back to Tattoo Homewreckers. This is a podcast. This is a tattoo where we talk about podcasts, life, and everything in between. My name is Callista, and this is
Lou.
Who currently has something in her eyeball.
Yeah. I'm going to be fucking with my eyeball a bunch. There's some invisible force. There's like a teeny tiny ween poking me right in the eyeball.
Why wieners?
Because it's funny and because I get a reaction out of you every time.
I know. You do.
Okay, so walk me through what your gender feels like today.
Oh, my gender. God damn.
I'm so itchy. God damn it.
My gender feels not itchy, but thirsty. I'm not thirsty in like a horny way, but thirsty in a goddamn, I am a dried up houseplant right now. Struggling to take care of myself. So I very much feel like a dried up houseplant. That's what my gender feels like today.
Nice.
What does your gender feel like?
A candy cane.
A
candy cane? This thing is too small, so...
For anyone who's just listening and not watching, Lou has on a wonderful candy cane
onesie. But it's too small because they only had mediums. But the hood is really good. So if anyone finds a large or even better yet, an extra large onesie, they have a plaid one and a red and white stripy one.
Yes.
At Forever 21. Please let me know. I will purchase that from you.
Yeah.
Or I'll trade. I have mediums. And medium is entirely too small.
I will say onesies are only good if they're like oversized for sure. I can't wear like a snug onesie. There's no way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to wear it because it's a onesie and I can't. I've been wearing two pieces all winter long so far.
I know, right?
It's because there hasn't been snow, and snow is my indicator for when it becomes onesie o'clock.
Yeah, and it is the worst thing ever, being up in the high desert, and snow only happens in February. But
stupid.
What does your gender feel like today?
I said a candy cane.
Oh, a candy cane. Duh. Right, my bad.
And then we got distracted.
Fuzzy candy cane.
Okay, and then this is a more serious episode, as you could tell from the title. So you want to take us away? Because you have a little visualization.
I have an intro for you guys. If I stumble through it, my bad. Okay, so we're starting this off in a little bit different format, but I want you to take a moment, and if you're driving, do not close your eyes. Sit down with us for a second, take a moment, and I want you to think of a memory in your childhood of this holiday season, whether you celebrate Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, or whatever. Just take a moment with us and think about a childhood memory during this holiday. And if your memory, I'll give you a second, if your memory involves your family in a happy way, I'm really happy for you. However, a lot of people do not have that. A lot of people can't think of a happy memory during the holidays that involves their family. So this episode is about how we can support those of you who don't have family during this time of year, whether it be you're no contact, you just don't have a good relationship with them, whether they've been passed or whatever. This is kind of like a support podcast on how you can A, support your friends, family, loved ones, or B, how you can support yourself during this holiday season. Because I don't think it's talked about enough how hard this time of year can be for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think we acknowledge that it's hard, but we definitely, as a society, will be like, oh, it's a really hard time of year, and then they kind of stop there.
Yeah.
And so you're going to take us away a little bit more on, like, the how to support friends and stuff.
Yeah.
Because when we were talking about it beforehand, I was like, yeah, I'm more on, like, how to support yourself. Because, like, if you don't know what you want out of the holidays, how the fuck are you're just wandering around.
Absolutely. So how to support your friend, or we'll just say if it's your friend, your partner, your acquaintance, your coworker, whatever. I think the biggest way that you can support people during the season is not questioning their choices as far as how they decide to interact with their families during the holidays. What I see goes wrong a lot is people will be like, oh yeah, well, oh, are you visiting family for the holidays? That opening question is already a little bit hard for a lot of people. So maybe instead of approaching it that way, ask if they have any big plans for the holidays.
Or anything they're excited for.
Right.
Because that gives space for them to tell you whatever it is they want to do.
Yes. And I was going to say there's nothing wrong with being curious, but you do want to give people an out as well. So when you ask them questions about like, what their relationship with their family is or whatever, be sure to preface with like, you don't have to answer any of these, by the way. It gives people a reason to like, I guess, feel a little bit safer with you. Because what I see goes wrong a lot is when you try to tell people like, oh, I don't have a good relationship with my family. A lot of the times, and this is out of pure curiosity and not an attack, but it is really triggering either way. They will, the worst thing you can say is, we'll try to make up, it's your family. You know, you can't turn your back on family. That's a really tough statement, I think, for anyone to hear, because a lot of trauma and a lot of shit went down before they decided to either A, go no contact, or A, go little contact, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of...
Nobody chooses to orphan themselves.
Period.
So make it really clear that you don't know why they are no contact with their family or low contact, or if they're brand new to establishing boundaries. And as someone who went through that a lot, and at this point, I've been so far removed that it's super easy. And I just hit people back when they ask that question. I'm like, are you going home and like spending time with your family? And I'm like, no, my husband, I don't really have family. And we just stop there because like we are both like not in much contact with our family, partly because our families don't contact us much. And because the family members that we do talk to, we know that like, you know, I'm really close with my dad, and I know that my dad doesn't count himself among that. But I don't always feel like getting into the fact that, like, no, I can't go home. Half of my family has passed away and the other half don't speak to me. Right. So if you would like for me to go into, like, detail of that, I'll gladly do that. But that's not what you're expecting.
Yeah. And again, you want to create a safe space for people who have a bit of a harder time during these holidays to be able to share their story in a way that like they know you're not going to judge them or try to sway their decision. I think that's the hardest part is like a lot of people try to inadvertently sway their decision and how they should act around their family, which is hard because again, it kind of perpetuates this cycle of toxicity that they grew up in. And you don't want to have that in your friend. And I think that support is a very active thing. It is not a passive thing by any means, but whether or not like you have strong family values has nothing to do with their choice. So remove yourself from this situation and realize that like there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes, a lot of pain that you haven't personally felt that led them to this decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked about giving space. Tell them like there's nothing wrong with being curious and wanting to get to know people, but give them enough room to know that they don't have to share this info with you if they don't want to. And then just be wary of like, I guess family-based questions of like, oh, are you just assuming that they're going to go home for the holidays? Because I think it's a big assumption that a lot of us have. And again, inadvertently, it is triggering for people because a lot of people recognize that it is painful when you don't have like a family support system that you can go and do all the traditional holiday stuff with. That sucks. It's just hard. It's an emotional time. We talked a little bit too about like pity invites are never fun.
Keep it to yourself. If you're inviting me because you feel bad that I don't have family here, I don't want the invitation. Or have the decency that if you're going to pity invite, I kind of think of a pity invite a little bit like a pity fuck. You should never know it's out of pity, because if that's the case, no one's going to have a good time.
Yeah, totally.
And I've gotten a lot of pity invites over the years of people like, oh, they don't really have family here, so we're going to have them over. And then a personal gripe is, can we stop calling it like Friendsgiving and like really separating out the fact that Friendsmas. Like, no, dude, it's still just like holiday traditions. And it, to me, is very dismissive of people who, for whatever reason, do not have like blood relatives that they are close with. It's very dismissing of like your chosen family. So definitely being part of the queer community, where a lot of families just reject you once you come out. So you didn't choose to go low contact or no contact. You got pushed out. And then when it's like, oh, well, we're going to have Friendsgiving for our friends whose family isn't here, you can hear how that automatically like demotes that and is this like very sad thing. And yes, there is a lot of sadness around this time of year. Even if you do have a great relationship with your family, it's the end of the year. There's this time of reflection. It's also colder. Yeah. So like we naturally get sadder at this time of year. We get less sun. We get less physical activities.
Will they say like, is it physiologically like things are different for us during this time of year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, our bodies respond differently. Our brain responds differently. it is just a time of like nostalgic like sadness, you know, and there's a lot of memes going around on the internet right now that's like, oh, only hot girls like cry on holidays, but like really everyone does. It's okay.
I was gonna say, is everyone a hot girl?
I mean, you can be if you want. It's all about attitude. But what else did we say? So yeah, pity invites are hard. If you want to invite someone, just make sure that you can always tell the difference between a pity invite and also don't invite someone if you really don't have the bandwidth to have them. So that's a really big one too. It's just I don't know. I trust that you guys know energetically there's a difference between authentically inviting someone just because you know that like things are a little bit harder, and then also just pity inviting them, but then making it their problem.
Yep.
Does that make sense? I think.
Well, I also feel like you shouldn't be inviting people just because you feel like it's harder for them. You should be inviting people
because you want them around. Yeah, there we go.
Like that's it. Like yeah, it shouldn't be in your thought process of like, oh, well, they don't have anyone else. Well, if they literally don't have anyone else, that's a them problem. Because like, yes, I'm not close with like family that we're gonna travel to or anything like that. But also, I still am going to have a great holiday season. Yes, there's the pain of like what you wish you had. But I am not over here like, oh no, I have no one to be with on the holidays. No, I have a great group of people who I love who will fill my holidays full of amazing time.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke. It's less of a yeah, you should invite them because they have no one. It's more of a authentically you want them around. Like, oh well, I want you to have a good holiday, so here's something that maybe we could do. And as far as like, I think that's pretty much it as far as supporting someone else. Again, just try your best to remove yourself from the situation. Their trauma has nothing to do with your idea of what family values are. There's a lot of shit that like I think people dismiss, and people automatically assume that the victims of like toxic family cycles are wrong, which is so interesting to me. But I mean, that makes sense that we live in a culture of victim blaming anyways. But yeah, they immediately go on the offense of like, well, you should make up with people. You should do this. It's the holidays.
Well, you should be with your family on the holidays. And like, if you are like me and you look back at holidays and you were like, dude, they were so fraught with tension and pain and it was awkward and awful. Like, I'm not fucking missing out. Like I said, what I grieve is the same thing I grieved at that point as well, when it was Christmas morning and I was there grieving the fact that I didn't have a like loving, happy family.
Yeah.
That like, whether I was there or whether I'm here, now at least I have the opportunity that I can grieve that in my own time and space without being yelled at.
Period. Isn't that great? Yeah. And I think also, for those of you who might not have realized that maybe your family cycle might be a little bit toxic, and you're new to this, and then upon the whole visualization of, oh shit, my childhood memory during the holidays didn't include my family, or it didn't include happy family things, I'm gonna kind of like switch gears off of what you were talking about. You need to figure out like what you want your holidays to look like then. So how's a good way that you can support yourself?
Yeah, so that was like when we were talking about this before we started recording, I was really big on like, I think it's really important that if you can't support yourself through the holidays, you can't support other people. It's very much that case. Like, typically I'm not the put my own life vest on first kind of person because I usually don't have that as like an option. I'm usually juggling too many other life vests. But especially around this time of year, because I do protect myself a lot around the holidays. And like I personally, if you guys have been around for a while, you know I hate gift giving. I hate it. People get weird with me about it. Like, she's watched it happen. It gets super weird that like I will then have people constantly asking me follow-up questions of whether I like that present.
It's strange.
So in my like childhood, gift giving was a lot of like, you had to have the perfect reaction. And especially because I don't necessarily like being perceived, or I don't like being the center of attention, opening presents in front of people is horrible for me. I hate it. It's awkward. It's the worst. People watching me open presents puts me into a place where I'm very triggered, and I will either dissociate, or I will afterwards, I will have to go and cry because I'll have to like regulate myself. So really sitting with, and I advise everyone, whether or not you have a good relationship with your family, no matter what your holidays look like, asking yourself what you want out of this holiday season, because it's something we're currently doing with our like pod is we're asking everyone, like, what's a tradition that you want to do? Because this is our first Christmas with our, like, besties where they're coming here. And so everyone has, like, different traditions. So, like, for Caboose, it's cookie day. And that just happened to line up with the fact that you also wanted to make cookies. For me, it's Christmas dinner. Because I haven't had, like, a really good Christmas dinner in a long time. And I want to have the day in the kitchen with my friends. So it's not just, like, one person cooking, but it's that whole, like, camaraderie family time of all of us being able to, like, laugh and, like, have fun together.
Yeah.
And, like, asking yourself, what do you want out of that? Whether you want a really busy Christmas or if you want a more relaxing Christmas, whether you want to have, like, new traditions or you want to, like, cherry pick what traditions you grew up with. Like, for me, caroling is a really big deal. So, like, that's something I love doing. We were singing Christmas carols in the car earlier.
We were. And it's funny because when you said, I want my tradition to be caroling, I was mortified. I was like, oh, God, I don't want to do that. But we're going to do it because we're friends and I love you and I want it.
Exactly.
That's the thing. And it was funny because Cole was also getting really nervous about, like, oh, God, like, I don't know which one, like, to do for mine. I'm like, that's okay. It'd be funny if we just tried to cram in as many Christmas traditions as possible. Because I'm also a firm believer that, like, you don't pick the tradition. I feel like the tradition picks you. So we're just going to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Yep.
And I'm excited for that.
One of our favorite traditions that purely happened out of just me being ridiculous because we were super broke one year and I love having a million presents under the tree. And I understand the hypocrisy. I said I don't like gift giving. But I just like the pretty paper. It's visually super satisfying for me. So, like, if you guys have been here for a while, you know that, like, us going around the house collecting shit and, like, basically stealing other people's stuff and then wrapping it up is one of my favorite traditions.
Yep.
And that's something that, like, I did not realize would actually carry on past that first year. And I fucking love it. Same as stockings are something we grew up with that were a big deal in our household. And were actually probably the best part of Christmas because you were allowed to open stockings when no one else was around. So, like, my brother and I would wake up super early and we would go and we'd open the stockings and you didn't have to, like, wait for anyone. So you got to just, like, open the stockings by yourself. Like, if you didn't like something, you could, like, trade it with someone else. And there was no, like, pressure of having the exact perfect reaction to a fucking box full of socks. When they're not the fucking socks you asked for and having to be like, thank you so much. These are amazing.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, totally.
But I really do think it's important to sit down and then also voice out to, like, the people around you. This is what I want out of Christmas. Like, for me, Christmas music, big fucking deal.
Yeah.
It's like a deal breaker of, like, all day on Christmas, we're playing fucking Christmas music.
Yeah, because I think it's, I don't know, it was interesting because this Halloween, too, we couldn't go as big as, like, you know, I wanted, because I've just been exhausted after the grand opening a new shop, having a baby. And I didn't realize, but, like, having time to do crazy makeup is really fucking important to me on Halloween. Like, I want to spend time on my makeup. I want to go full fucking drag. So not having time and then, like, having to be rushed was, like, really I was not about it. And if you are honest with your friends about your expectations, and Brene Brown had said that too, like, you have to tell people, like, hey, this is how I am going to feel loved in this moment. This is what I need in this moment. Like, the release is so much better because then there's that tension is gone. Because then it's like, okay, great.
And, like, now I'm going to add that tension back in by saying, if you feel like you can't tell people what you want, that's a red flag.
That's hard.
So if you can't tell your family, hey, I really like a couple hours of, like, quiet time on Christmas, and you're like, oh no, I could never tell them that, that's something that you probably want to talk to a therapist about.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God.
Because that's not a healthy environment if you can't say, like, this is what my ideal Christmas looks like. And everyone, like, especially if you can't even voice it. But then if you do voice it and no one fucking backs you up on that, because, like, we now know that for Halloween.
Yeah.
Same as like, I didn't realize how much of a big deal it was that you decorated last Halloween. And genuinely, our house looked like the fucking set of Hocus Pocus. And this Halloween, I was so sad that didn't happen that I was like, oh, so decorating for Halloween is a really big deal, which means currently, as we're designing new Christmas decorations, we're also designing them to be reversible. So they're also Halloween decorations.
Right.
So it makes next year easier to decorate.
Absolutely. There's, I don't know, having that, again, putting on your life vest for this holiday season is super important, because then it'll help you be able to distinguish, like, what do you want your holidays to look like? Because again, I think I've said this plenty of times on the podcast before, you have such a short period of time on Earth, and you can like tailor your existence to how you want it to look like. Obviously, it's going to take work. Everything fucking does. Don't be worried about that. Don't be afraid of like having to do the emotional growth to be able to tell your friends or tell your family, like, hey, this is what I really need, because you are equally as important as everyone else around you. So yeah, and rant.
Yeah, so I think it's important to take steps. The first thing is sitting down, because I think so few people actually ask themselves, like, what do I want this to look like? What do I want these holidays to look like? Because we do put so much pressure on them. So you should take some time to think, this is what I want.
Oh, and get specific.
Yeah. That's that Brene Brown quote of clarity is kindness.
Right.
So the clearer you can be with people, the better it's going to be. Because you can't just come in and say, I want it to be magical, because that also means nothing.
Yep.
So being clear of like, this is what it looks like. For you, it looks like baking cookies. For me, it looks like setting up a Christmas dinner, and then taking the steps to actually make it happen. Because I think that's the other thing that we forget this time of year, is that so much stuff is just magically done. And I say that in air quotes, because a lot of invisible labor happens this time of year. And a lot of that, not to make it completely gendered, falls on people that have vulvas. Like, it falls on the female identifying individuals to make the magic happen. And so we say, oh, well, I just want it to be magic. And you're like, okay, so what are you doing to make it magic? Because you have to have some responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
To make it happen. Now, that being said, you shouldn't be the only person. You should have a support group around you of people that are like, absolutely, these are all the things we want to do. Let's maximize that.
Right. 100%. Oh, sorry.
I was getting a phone call.
I'm apparently getting a phone call in the middle of this. Yeah, I think that like it falls under James Clear too, where everyone talks about reflection in this day and age, but I don't think that everyone necessarily knows what that means. You know what I mean? What does self-reflection mean? So what does self-reflection mean to me is, being specific, saying, how do I feel in this moment when this doesn't happen? How do I feel in this moment when it does happen? Was the labor worth it? A lot of the times it is for me.
Yes. Most times it is.
How can I learn from this? How can I ask? If this person responds poorly to that, what does that mean? So self-reflection is, again, getting really fucking specific. You have to get specific, because then if you're not specific with yourself, then you can't be specific with other people. Then when you have a shitty Christmas for whatever it may be, and you feel uncomfortable because you didn't voice it, like, that's a whole other issue. Where it's like, okay, let's say this Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, you weren't able to tell everyone your needs in time, and that's fine. But what are you going to do in order to be able to have a better holiday season next year? Yeah. Right? Yep. Who's going to be on your list of people that you want to see?
Well, that was our Thanksgiving this year was our big catalyst, because like, I didn't plan anything, and we are still working through like the gender roles of like me being the person that organizes everything. So when I didn't plan anything, Caboose didn't even think about it.
Right.
So he didn't take any like initiative to do anything, because he's not used to having that responsibility. And so we literally did nothing. And I was so like hurt by the fact that I was like, okay, so it's already a super hard day, because arguably Thanksgiving was a bigger deal for like our families than Christmas was, just because my family is very food based. And so I was like, well, now we literally have done nothing. And like, there was nothing that made it special. And look, don't get me wrong, Thanksgiving is a problematic holiday. I'm not saying it for any of that.
We know that, yes.
Any of that. But just the tradition of like getting together or doing something is a big deal to me. And we didn't. So that's where I was like, no, we're going to get hella clear on Christmas, because I'm not being the person that's in charge. Like, it's just not fair. Is that your belly?
That was my belly.
Ooh,
She's a
your
little
belly was like,
hungry.
I can't wait for Christmas.
I don't know why. Yeah. We started talking about food and I said,
your belly's like, oh, give me food. I want Christmas food.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a big catalyst for me realizing that I was like, oh, I was not clear on like, this is what I want out of the holidays. And that's been something that we're working with Caboose on as well, is like, you have to be clear on what it is you want, which also for a lot of people means sitting down and thinking about what you want. Because the amount of people that continue traditions just because, because they're like, oh, well, we always did that. And it's like, yeah, but does it bring you joy?
Yeah, because that's the point. That's what I'm saying is like, you can pick a tradition. And I thought it was really funny that I picked cookies because I don't know, I'm a very stressful baker. Like I get stressed when I bake. But is it fun for me?
I did not know that.
I do.
Oh, this is going to be lovely.
Yeah, I get a little stressed. By a little stress, I mean, like, I'm the kind of person that, like, as soon as it goes in the oven, I have to, like, look at it and just stare at it for, like, 2 minutes.
There is not going to be room for you to stand in front of the oven.
That's fine.
Oh, you guys, this is going to be a hilarious cooking day.
That's why I'm saying, like, traditions pick you. You don't pick the tradition. Obviously, this year, we're doing all of them.
As many traditions as we can get in there.
Yes.
We're going to shove as many as we can in 3 days.
As many ridiculous, like, Christmas games, like, all the things. Because we got to find out what sticks in our chosen family, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, no,
we just got supplies for slap bag.
We did, yeah.
Yep, because that's become a tradition.
Yep.
Because we did that for the first, or at least it was the first time for me. I'd never done that.
I've never done that either.
Yeah, when we were with our friends, so.
Yeah, exactly. In Yellowstone.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you poured, was
wine.
it red wine?
Yeah, red wine all over Cole's face.
All over.
It was so fucking funny. And you know what's funny too? That trip, like, we didn't, like, know them as, like that was what, our third time, like, hanging out?
Mm-hmm.
Our third time ever hanging. I felt so fucking bad, but it was so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, that just means that they're going to get you back with twisted tea.
Yeah, I'm extra excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Extra excited. But yeah, I think that's about it as far as, like, do you have any other notes on supporting yourself, how to support other people during these hard times?
Yeah, I think it's just really holding yourself accountable while still giving yourself grace. Because, like, as strong as I currently sound, there will be tears. Mm-hmm. There will be times when I will cry over the fact that, like, I wish that I had one of those, like, Hallmark movie, like, this so cute, like, I'm so happy that you came home, like, moment for the holidays. But I, at the same time, I'm responsible for getting off my ass and not just being like, well, I'm going to wallow. And making it a good time for myself. But I think that that's, to me, the biggest thing is, like, you have to do what's best for you. And if you're like, no, I have to spend the holidays with my parents, understand that that's still a choice.
You've made that
choice. Like, yeah, you have a choice. So whether or not you go home or participate, and if you're like, hey, look, it's a really shitty environment and it's awful, but, like, I want my kids to have the grandparents. Okay, well, that was your choice. So, yeah, it can be shitty, but that's what you're choosing to do. And I think that that's the hardest thing for people to realize is people get caught so much in that idea of, like, tradition being the most important thing. And your happiness trumps that. Because what I like to think of is, if this was my last Christmas, what would I want to have the most of? Like, what do I want? I want to be around people that make me, like, laugh so hard that I almost cry, that fucking, I don't have to, like, mask at all, that I can just be myself fully with, and that I am not worried about offending or anything like that. And I think that that's the real thing, is that because this time of year is so entrenched in tradition, and we think that, like, well, I always go home, so I just have to. That's the choice you're making. Yep. And you can make any choice you want. And if you're like, well, I don't have a choice, you do. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to realize.
That was really well put. Yeah. Being gentle with yourself, but also, like, holding yourself accountable because you are casting a vote. And I think when you said, like, okay, but do these traditions actually bring you happiness? We are, like, arguably from, like, a small age brainwashed into thinking, like, oh, holidays are supposed to look like this, but then never question whether or not that actually is good for you. if that actually means something to you. Again, it could be your last like holiday on Earth. Did you really want to spend it like that?
Mm-hmm.
You can cater your experience however you want. You just need to put in the work and realize that, yeah, you are constantly, when you're making choices every day, casting a vote in what direction you want your life to go to.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and you get to pick and choose. I don't do holiday cards anymore because that would be a fucking fight every single year. And then I realized that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, and in this day and age, we don't need holiday cards like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And though, do I like getting them? Yeah, I think they're really pretty. Mm-hmm. But am I going to sit down and write out 50 addresses and have to track down all that? No. Because the, 2 weeks that I would spend doing all of that is not worth it when I can just be like, well, I can watch movies and you've come home every day for the last couple weeks and I'm just there wrapping fucking tinsel around Christmas lights. So I would rather spend my time wrapping my old tinsel around Christmas lights than I would sending out letters. So you get to pick and choose what you want. You also get to make up new traditions. And I think that that's the thing is whatever you think is going to make you happy, do that. As long as you're not harming other people. That's the caveat to that.
Please, yeah. Be responsible.
Yeah, be responsible. And don't drink and drive. God damn it.
Period.
I think that's probably it for me. It's just remembering that you are accountable for your own happiness.
Yeah. And for you people pleasers out there, again, gentle reminder that you are also a person and you deserve to be happy.
Yeah. Please yourself first.
Yeah.
Because also if you're miserable, to be really clear, I used to go to all of our Christmas stuff and I hated it. And it was awful, and you're just not that fun if you're not having a good time anyway. So there's no point subjecting other people, and they're allowed to miss you. But if you're you guys genuinely will have a better time without me because it's not your cup of tea, that's A-okay, and you can lay in that boundary.
Yeah, simple. All right, well then what was your win for this week?
My win for this week is probably painting our bathrooms.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Because we are painting our entire upstairs.
Of course.
By we, I mean me. I'm just a single individual painting with the 7 other people inside of my brain. What's your win?
My win for this week would probably I think I've been a lot more gentle with myself lately, which is great. I've kind of just let myself go into slower gear without the crippling guilt that happens typically every year when I start slowing down. I typically get really angry at myself and frustrated that I'm not working at full capacity. And this year has been pretty chill. I've been slowing down. I've been feeling the effects of it and being like, well, that's okay. That makes sense. So,
yep. It's hibernation season, you guys.
Sure is. Take care of yourself out there. Yep. All right. Well,
bye.
See y'all later.
Thing in my eyeball.
Should I clap?